Jumps, not creeps. 34% of the ASVAB comparison group sits between a 50 and a 60, and one number on the Navy bonus page decides what that 10-point band is worth. Don't lose that thread.
Hey, this is Cynthia. The AFQT opens the door. A separate set of numbers picks the job once you're through it, and nobody hears about that second set until they're across from a recruiter.
Last episode, we walked the score you need to enlist, branch by branch. That's the door. Today is the 10 points on top of it.
Okay, Leo here, and I'll defend the version most people believe because it sounds reasonable. The score's a slider. Push it up 10 and you get a bit more of the same. A few extra jobs at the bottom of the sheet, maybe one decent one near the top. I'd put real money on most of the room agreeing right now.
Everyone believes that version. Start with the scale underneath it. About half the population scores at or above a 50. About 16% scores at or above a 60.
16. Erica, say what that means for the person watching.
10 points, and you've stepped over about 34% of everybody you're ranked against.
Fine, steeper than I pitched it. Still a slider though. More points, more options, one at a time.
Every job sits behind a published minimum, Leo. The Army's own recruiting page says line scores determine job opportunities across career categories.
The list opens in blocks then. You're not collecting one job at a time. You clear a published number and a whole category shows up at once.
Miss it by a single point, and you get none of that category. That part I genuinely don't enjoy.
There's a second thing underneath this that catches almost everyone. 10 points doesn't mean one thing.
Right, the AFQT's a percentile, so 10 points there is 10% of the comparison group by definition. The standard scores are the per subtest numbers that build every composite, and 10 points there is that 34%. Same sentence out of a recruiter's mouth, two completely different moves.
Then when somebody says get 10 more points, which 10 do they mean?
Both, usually, and they're not being sloppy. Look at where the door itself sits, though.
A 31. That's the published minimum on the Army's page and on the Air Force's page, and a 31 is a percentile, so 69% of the comparison group is already standing above you on the day you clear it.
Which makes the 10 points above the door the whole conversation.
Here's what worries me about my own advice, though. Test just to see where you land, and the newest score is the one that counts. The Army says it flatly on that same page. Your most recent score, not your highest. There's no best of 3.
Changes what I'd tell somebody tonight, honestly.
Which is exactly why we broke our question bank apart by section on certs.professorerica.com. It costs nothing, and it means you can pour an evening into word knowledge alone instead of spraying effort across all 10. Leo, you've defended the slider all segment. Put the question in your own words.
Reluctantly, since everybody here is clearly enjoying this, if job lists open in blocks, what does 10 points actually open?
Everything so far has cost you a wrong idea. The next 10 minutes is where it starts costing money, so stick with me because one of those numbers has a comma in it. Let me pause for just a second because this genuinely helps. If you are getting value here, hit that like button, then subscribe and ring the bell. It costs you nothing, and it is the single biggest thing that keeps these videos coming. Professor Okafor is at the desk with us today, here to help with this one. Straight in then. What actually changes on a score report when the number moves?
Hold on, not what changes on the report. What changes that a recruiter is allowed to act on. 2 lists, and people lose the second one.
Then start me at the beginning because I want the shape of the page before anybody does math on it. What's physically printed there?
1 report, 2 scales. Top of the page, a single AFQT number, a percentile. Underneath it, a standard score for every subtest you sat. That second set is the raw material. It's what gets combined into the composites that jobs are written against. Nobody circles it for you, nobody labels it, and the page gives the headline number all the visual weight even though it's the smaller half of the story.
So when your score moves, both of them move. Which is why one sentence out of a recruiter means 2 different things at once.
Start with verbal because the Air Force publishes exactly how it works. Word knowledge and paragraph comprehension are combined into one verbal expression score first. Raise verbal and mechanical moves, administrative moves, general moves, electronics doesn't move at all.
Hold on, why is it even called verbal expression? Nobody says that phrase out loud anywhere else in life.
It isn't a subtest. It's a combination the service builds first. The name describes the ingredient, not the exam.
Okay, we're 3 exits past the topic. Back to the 4. Mechanical, administrative, general, electronics.
Verbal feeds mechanical, administrative, and general, 3 of the 4, which means the 2 sections people write off as the easy English ones are load-bearing across most of that branches.
Wait, is verbal 1 number or 2?
1, combined first, then used. That's why a verbal gain shows up in 3 places at once instead of 1.
And the thresholds those composites get measured against are published, which is the part people assume is secret. Same branch, same test, 2 different doors.
31 and 50, 2 doors.
19 points apart for the exact same uniform, decided by a piece of paper you got at 17. And I want to be careful how I say that, because it isn't a judgment about anybody. It's a published threshold, and thresholds are the whole architecture here. Which changes what I'd tell somebody about their evening if the target sits behind.
No, wider than that. The same hour moves your AFQT too.
Wider, fine. Both scales, 1 evening.
The way the Air Force builds, forget the 4 names for a second. Electronics takes no verbal input at all. Not word knowledge, not paragraph comprehension. So somebody aiming at an electronics job could raise verbal all month and watch that composite sit perfectly still.
Here's the ruling then, because that exception fixes the rule. A gain moves every composite that contains the subtest you raised, and only those. That's the safest way to plan. I mean, safest if you already know which composite your job uses.
There is the difference between a study plan and a study habit. One is aimed, the other is exercise. Can I ask you something though? Does anybody in this room know the composite for the job they'd actually pick?
So flip it and test it. Raise arithmetic reasoning instead. Now mechanical moves, general moves, electronics moves, and administrative is the one sitting still. Same rule, different 3. There's no universally best subtest. There's only the best one for the composite your job's written against.
Leo, I said broad study was the least efficient plan available. That was too strong, and you were right to push. Broad's correct when you don't have a target yet.
Then I'll drop the slider because that's not what this is. A slider slides. This is a turnstile. You've got the number or the arm doesn't move.
Same arm, whether you miss by 1 point or by 30. My kids stick their drawings on the fridge at whatever height they can reach, and that's roughly how I picture a job list. Nothing above the line exists yet.
It depends on exactly one thing, and it is checkable before you spend an evening. 3 questions in order. Does the composite contain that section? Does your target job use that composite? Does the gain clear the published minimum?
1 clean step at a time then. And wait until you hear the number buried in the official retest rules, because that's what decides how long a serious prep window actually is.
Which leaves the only question that matters tonight, and it's got a number in it.
How many of the 4 does each subtest actually touch?
Three of the 4. That's the answer Erica left hanging, and it changes where every study hour.
3 of 4 for which one?
Both of the ones nobody studies on purpose. Every study hour goes to them.
Verbal and arithmetic reasoning. Each lands in 3 of the 4 Air Force composites.
The overlap is the whole strategy then, not the total hours.
Verbal, arithmetic reasoning, and math knowledge laid against mechanical, administrative, general, and electronics. 3 sections, 4 composites.
Verbal hits mechanical, administrative, and general.
Arithmetic reasoning hits mechanical, general, and electronics.
Math knowledge?
2. Administrative and electronics.
Electronics information touches 1. Auto and shop, 1. General science, 1.
Narrow isn't the same as worthless though.
No, it's saying they're narrow. Narrow's exactly right if your target sits in that lane.
If you want an electronics job, electronics information is the one line on that page that matters most.
If you don't know yet,
Then you spend your hours where the coverage is. And I want to say the part I got wrong out loud.
say it properly then.
It's not a slider. A subtest either sits inside a composite or it doesn't. I was wrong about that, and I'm not going to be precious about
Leg day finally taught you something about specificity, Leo.
unbelievable, correct, but unbelievable. Not precious about it is what I was saying.
Which raises the real question, and the chat's pushed it at me twice already.
The chat wants to know how many hours a 10-point move takes.
Okay, 2 ways to answer that, and the first one is that the question's got the wrong unit in it.
The wrong unit. Go on.
The real question isn't hours, it's months, because the official retest calendar decides your window before your 4.
That's a dodge. Hours are what somebody's got tonight.
Here's the ruling. The official policy sets 1 month before your first retest, another month before the second, then 6 months between every attempt after that.
Withdrawn. 6 months is a completely different argument than 6 hours.
Test day is attempt 1. 1 month later, attempt 2. Another month, attempt 3, then 6 months between every attempt after that.
There's the number I said we'd come back to, 6.
Which reframes everything. Attempt 3 is a half-year decision.
So pause right here and get your score report out. I'll wait. Find the subtest lines, not the headline.
Then circle the 2 lowest that show up in the composite you actually need.
And this is the part I'm genuinely excited about, because it's the cheapest win in the whole process. 2 sections, 30 days, 1 attempt.
Versus 10 sections and no plan.
1 month of aimed work beats 4 months of even work, because even work nudges 10 numbers a little and no composite enough.
1 month. That's not a life sentence.
Nobody said yet what that month is actually worth in dollars.
40,000. Professor Okafor rejoining us for the money half of this. Where does the money actually attach, the score or the job?
The job. Always the job. The score sits upstream of it, which is why people mislocate the cause and think the test pays them.
Say the difference in kitchen table words because that sounds like a technicality and I don't think it is one.
The Navy publishes its enlistment bonuses by rating, not by score. Nuclear field, special warfare, explosive ordnance, each with a figure printed beside it. Read that page and you'll notice nothing on it mentions a test result anywhere. The score's the turnstile deciding which of those you're standing in front of, and once you're through, the money is a property of the job, not of you.
To borrow Leo's word, yes. And one of those names is worth actually watching, so here is Navy Explosive Ordnance Disposal working a range, setting the charge and clearing back before it goes. The Navy's own page then adds the condition people skip. That bonus is earned and payable on graduation from A or C school.
The money's behind the school seat then, and the school seat's behind the score.
Score, job, school seat, bonus. That's the chain in that order, and every link is a gate.
Chasing a higher number in the abstract is how people waste a month. You chase the composite the rating uses, and the only way to know which one that is to open the page where it's written down. That's a 20-minute job you can do tonight before you spend a single hour studying anything.
Think about car insurance for a second because everybody already gets this one right. The company doesn't price you by the inch.
Go on.
The rate bracket is the score band. Your driving record is your section scores. The quote they hand you is your job list. No slightly better rate for a slightly better record. You cross into a bracket or you don't.
Okay, but what happens when the brackets aren't printed on the wall in one specific way? Nobody mails you the bracket table. Each branch publishes its own, and it shifts with the recruiting climate.
Literally then without the car. Every job has a published minimum composite. You clear it or the job isn't on your list.
Which leaves a real fork, and both sides of it are honest. Test now or prep first.
Testing now keeps the ship date and the seat that's open today.
Prepping first builds the list instead of accepting it.
Both are defensible. Choosing without knowing which composite your target job uses is not. That's guessing wearing a decision's clothes.
Bring us back to the number Erica held at the very top then. The $sign on the band. I've wanted that one since the cold open, and it's the part I'd have wanted at 17, because at 17 nobody explains that the interesting money is attached to the hardest seats.
The figure I promised you up top. The Navy lists its nuclear field enlistment bonus at $30,000.
What if you volunteer for submarine duty?
$40,000, $10,000 more, same page, same rating.
True for almost everybody watching, almost. There's one group this actually hurts, and we're getting to them because the same arithmetic that makes waiting obvious for one person makes it a genuine mistake for another. That asymmetry is the part that never makes it into a recruiting brochure, and it is the reason I keep saying pick the job first.
Anyone whose ship date already sits inside the retest window, for them the arithmetic doesn't close, and I'd say that plainly rather than hedge it.
Take a composite example, invented parts obvious. 19, diploma tier, tested cold on a Tuesday because a friend had an appointment. Call her Renata.
That's the one with the older brother already in?
A cousin, I thought. Doesn't matter. She cleared the door, and every rating left on her sheet had no school seat attached.
No bonus then, because the bonus lives behind the school, which is the cruelest version of this, honestly. She cleared the bar everybody talks about and missed every bar that pays.
She went back a month later, scored higher, and the recruiter used a newer number. Same rule, working in her favor that time.
That rule cuts the other way just as easily. I've got the Army's page printed here, and it says it in one line. Your most recent score, not your highest. So test the decision before you test yourself.
I can't tell you whether your own number is worth a retest. Nobody responsible can without reading your report. The pattern is people retesting to feel better rather than to clear a published bar.
Which is why the number comes first and the date comes second. Pick the job. Find its composite on the branch's own recruiting site. List the sections inside it. Then set the number you need and book the test against that number, not against a Tuesday that happened to be free. Leg day taught me exactly one useful thing, and it's that nobody gets stronger doing a bit of everything.
Name the job, find its composite, list the sections, set the number, then book the test. One more payoff sits behind the same block, and it outlasts the bonus. The Army runs a credentialing site mapping more than 1,600 career options to civilian certifications and licenses, with assistance up to $2,000.
That's the part worth caring about at 19. A bonus gets spent, a license doesn't.
Professor Okafor, thank you. One last sentence from you, and make it the one they would keep.
Find the published number for the job you want before you book anything. The rest of this episode is downstream of that one lookup.
Here's what I'd actually do, and it is the one rule to carry out of here. If your ship date isn't closing, wait the month and aim it. That's the smart play, and it's the one I'd want a 19-year-old me to hear.
2 things to act on tonight. The most recent score is the one used, so don't test cold just to see. The retest clock runs 1 month, then 6.
Send this to whoever's testing next month. 30 days is exactly their window.
If the band idea changed how you're planning your study time, drop a like on the way out and subscribe so the subtest breakdowns land in your feed. I'll answer mine first. If I were 19 again, I'd wait the month, and I'd still be nervous about it. So what is your number and what job is it for? Set the number, then book the test. See you at the next one.